My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, I'm finally filming my March check-in, and I'm actually filming it on Sunday afternoon, and I'm hoping to post it on Sunday evening. So fingers crossed that it goes well. I am a little bit concerned because, as you can see, I've rearranged my filming setup. As the days have gone by, our space has continued to evolve to be more utilitarian and to suit us better for the fact that we are in this one room apartment 24/7 now, trying to both have leisure time and work and be together and be apart and have meals and all of that stuff. And I needed to make some changes to my office because of a project that I'm currently focusing on. And so I ended up setting things up like this, and it won't be permanent. The cool thing is, maybe I'll try to insert a picture or something, but I've now affixed my camera and my ring light to the C-stand, so it might make me kind of flexible, and maybe I can even shoot some videos like over at the windows in natural light or something, just in the interim, like during this time. But I'm hoping that it'll be suitable at least to get through this video because I've got to get the show on the road. I think it's taken me a while. Well, I know that there are a number of reasons why it's taken me a while to get around to filming this, and some of them I will enumerate later in the video when I'm just talking about how things have been going. But there's also just the thing of the fact that it's a little bit hard to conceive of returning to something that one does regularly. Like, this is something I do on a monthly basis. And between now and the last time I filmed my check-in towards the beginning of March, just everything has changed so completely, and some things just like beyond recognition. And it's a little bit hard to conceive of returning to like a regular landmark video that I film all the time when so much has changed. So it's just taken me a little bit longer than usual to rally, and I've had to kind of like draw on some resources that I don't usually have to draw on to rally. So when I sat myself down and I was like, Hannah, you still have to film a check-in. Let's like start from scratch. What do they usually consist of? This is the answer. The goal of my check-ins is usually threefold. At least this year, my check-ins are primed to kind of be threefold in their goals. The first part of the goal is to check in about how it's going, being on a more fluid budget. So there's like the beauty budget part of my project, so I have to check in about that. The second part is to do with the year of less stuff. I have to check in about how it's going, my goal to have less stuff at the end of the year, and how it's affecting my life. And then my check-ins always include a third part, which is just like checking in with you guys and letting you know if my life is changing, how it's changing, if anything is going to affect like my YouTube presence and the way that I interact with you guys and just our relationship here. So I always take the opportunity in my check-ins to kind of like debrief about the month and about how things are going. So that's the roadmap. I can definitely do that. I'm going to make my way through all three of those points, and I'm going to go in that order. We're going to go budget, year of less stuff, how everything is going. Usually the budget stuff, at least for the first 2 months, the budget stuff really loomed large in these check-ins. It was like, life's going fine, and then I had to go through all of this explaining about how it was going with my budget, because as we know, it didn't go the way I expected for the first couple of months. This month, I feel like the budget and the year of less stuff are going to be like the quick and easy ones. Although I do have stuff to report. I mean, when I started writing it out in my notes, I was like, oh yeah, I do have like the meat of a video to offer. But it's really the third thing, like about how life is changing and what that's going to mean for us, and for me here on my channel, and for you here on my channel. That is really the big one in this video. So I'm going to save that for third place. We'll do the other two and then we'll do that one. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Okay, starting with number one, the budget. How is it going with my budget? In short, it's going great. I, at the end of February, resolved not to spend any large chunks of my budget until way later in the year, because in January and February of this year, I spent way more of my yearly budget than I expected to spend. So I had that resolution in place going into March, and it's been much easier to stick to it even than it would have been because of everything that's been going on. Basically, I'm doubly incentivized to not spend big chunks of my budget because my financial future and just future in general has become so uncertain. At this point, as I'm filming this, we are not sure if we are going to be able to reopen our business. we aren't even sure if we're going to be able to stay in Los Angeles. And so I feel like no matter what happens, I'm going to need all of my savings and all of whatever income is coming in for me right now, like everything that's in my checking account. I'm going to need all of it to back us up. Our reality in this global crisis is doing a great job at constantly reminding me of something that was always true, which is that I'm not a wealthy person, and I'll be doing myself a great disservice if I give in too frequently, and these days if I give in at all, to the temptation to momentarily pretend that I'm wealthier than I am and buy things that kind of like assist me in that fantasy. So since my last check-in, I have barely spent any of my beauty budget. I have spent a little bit of it, but I haven't like made any major purchases, and that was what my goals were. I will let you know what it is I purchased in my forthcoming video about how I spent my budget in March. I'm still going to make that video. I think it'll still be a good video, and all will be revealed about what I actually bought, a little bit of money that I actually spent in that video. But overall, I've been doing really, really, really well at not spending really my budget. That said, I can't in good conscience discuss this topic without telling you that for weeks at this point, I've been feeling the powerful desire to impulse spend out of stress and out of feeling sorry for myself. The desire to spend money on items of self-care and indulgence, in a way, has never felt so legitimate as it does now. So even though I haven't spent almost any of my beauty budget, which, you know, if I were buying things like clothing or makeup, apart from the things that I bought for review, or, you know, bath and body products, hair products, those kinds of things. Those are the things on which I have to spend my budget. So even though I've done a really good job of not impulse buying those things and not overspending on that kind of group of stuff, I have bought a few things that don't have to be covered by my budget. So, you know, like I bought a larger hot water kettle that sits on our stovetop to heat up a larger volume of water at a time, because I've been making big pots of tea since we've been in quarantine and I don't usually do that. And the hot water kettle that we had was really small and I couldn't heat up enough water at one time. And so one day I just got really frustrated and I was like, I don't care. I'm like getting us a bigger hot water kettle. And I spent some time doing some research and I found the one that I wanted and I bought one. And it wasn't super expensive. It wasn't like I spent $100 on like the fanciest water kettle or something like that. Not at all. I made a very practical choice, but still I recognize it as being like a double-headed event. So part of what was going on was that I was recognizing a need. I was recognizing that something that's functional in our household wasn't serving its purpose, and we could really use like replacing it with one that serves our purposes better. So that was true and it was practical in that way. But at the same time, I know myself and I know that researching like the best version of a thing to buy and buying it is a thing that makes me feel better on a chemical level, because I have this long history of self-soothing with shopping. So when I did that, I was aware that I was doing both of those things at the same time. So I bought that teapot, which is a homeware. It's like a joint housewares expense. So it's not something that comes out of my beauty budget. I've bought some, you know, nice tea and snacks, and I have purchased like a body health thing, which is like a yoga roller for my back. I have one over at the studio, but I forgot to bring it over with me, and I was really missing it because my back has been really like messed up and tight because I've been stressed and I can't get a massage. So I bought one and had it shipped to us, and I've been using it. Just like there have been a couple of little things like that, little purchases like that, scattered over the past couple of weeks, over the month of March, I guess. So not technically budget items, but like self-care specific and really in a way like quarantine specific items that I told myself I was buying them to like get us through, to get me through. And then I also had that momentary relief of pushing the button to buy the thing. And also you'll see when I do my video about what I bought in March that the one purchase of any kind really like in the middle of March that I made was also self-care related. It was also like feeling sorry for myself, wanting to coddle myself during this weird time. It was made in that spirit. So luckily, all of those things, all of those purchases have not added up to very much money overall, especially compared to like how my old habits were and how I would have indulged in self-soothes before my no-buy year if I didn't have the perspective that I have now. It was really an okay amount, like it was an amount that added up to something that's okay with me. All in all, I have stayed pretty well in check, and that is good. I am proud of myself. But I have to report that on an almost daily basis, I have felt the impulse to varying degrees to just say, all bets are off, the world is falling apart, and to just buy like a really fancy sweatsuit, like another tracksuit from Aviator Nation, or to buy like a really cheap tracksuit from one of those like sketchy sites that tries to target me on Instagram. Just like something that I wouldn't ordinarily buy. And both of those things are things that I wouldn't ordinarily buy. The Aviator Nation tracksuit because of the expense of it, and the like cheap, you know, tracksuit from an Instagram ad, I wouldn't ordinarily buy that because of my commitment to fewer, nicer things. But on a near daily basis, I've had this part of me that's like tried to jump up out of my throat into the world and like buy all the stuff that I wouldn't ordinarily buy just to push the buttons, just to get things, just to feel better. I'm basically aware that due to what is going on globally, those old demons are getting a really juicy chance to rear their ugly heads, and they're trying. And I'm grateful that I've been able to resist within reason. I have made those few self-soothing purchases that have, the nature of the items has helped me and soothed me, and then making the purchase has also inevitably helped me and soothed me. But I feel okay about it overall because I haven't gone to a place where I'm like endangering either my financial health or my mental health. And I'm also taking it very seriously that I don't think it would be a good idea to like punish myself or scold myself about those few like sanctioned purchases that I know were made for like a mixture, like a chaotic mixture of reasons. I haven't broken my budget or my rules. I'm not out of control, and things are hard enough right now without me like treating myself badly for failing to show the utmost level of restraint. So that is it with my budget. It's pretty simple, and even those things that I was talking about, the teapot, the yoga wheel, even those things are like, those aren't budget sanctioned purchases, so I didn't necessarily even need to talk about them during this time, but I just want to bring it up just in case you guys are going through something similar, and I would love to hear in the comments if you are, just like how it's been going for you in terms of striking the balance between trying to be smart about, you know, saving the money that you have, especially if your financial situation has been destabilized like mine has, but also not like locking down on yourself in a way that's super, super stressful and admonishing. I feel like there's this funny thing that's been going on that Joe and I have kind of been experiencing as a team, because some of these purchases like the teapot or the yoga wheel, like things for our physical health or for our household, some of them, you know, we've considered them together because we were paying for them together. And so the question has come up a couple of times, and it's been essentially the same question every time. It's like this question in which we're weighing the value of like an item that will dramatically improve our experience during this very difficult time where we're just under lockdown essentially, weighing the value of that against our worries about our future and our worries about our finances. We don't know what's going to happen for us. There are so many different ways that it could turn out. There are some scenarios, potential scenarios in which everything's totally fine and we're totally fine, and we would have been totally fine to buy the teapot and to buy the yoga wheel during this time. And since buying them is making us healthier, it's just like helping us stay on track and helping us stay sane, you know, in those scenarios it will have turned out to be worth it. But there are other future scenarios in which really every last dollar is going to count, and if we look back during this time, we're going to feel like we shouldn't have bought that yoga wheel and we shouldn't have bought that teapot because every last dollar, you know, would have been put to better use if it had been saved. But we just don't know. And so there's kind of this, we're like making these judgment calls about which self-care items or which items of health and support are worth the risk of spending money that we don't know how badly we're going to need in the future. I'm not sure if that came out grammatically correct, but I think that you guys know what I'm trying to say. So that was why I wanted to bring up those items, because you better believe I'm on that yoga wheel a couple of times a day, and I really feel like it's helping me to stay healthy. I really feel like it's keeping my spine aligned. It's helping me to keep my like my breastbone open and my tummy area open and stretched out instead of caving in on itself, which is one of the tendencies of my body. It's really helping. I'm really, really glad that I have it. And I just have to trust that I made the right decision, and that what it's doing for me is going to get me further in life, no matter how bad things get financially, than the money that it cost would have gotten me. All right, moving on to talk about the year of less stuff. This is also going very, very well. I bought barely anything this month, and almost everything that I did buy is something that I'm going to use up very quickly, and so it's not something that's going to like stay permanently in my life as a presence. And I got very little PR this month. Most PR is still going to our old office, and either nothing has come, or I didn't know that anything arrived there, or it got returned to sender. A few things have come here. I got a little bit of PR from that brand Open Formula, which I have actually been really enjoying. But for the most part, the Purgatory box, which I still haven't reckoned with, I haven't filmed that video yet, but I do have a small Purgatory box with which to reckon, but it isn't as full as it's been in past months. So I just feel like I've accepted fewer things this month into my life, and at the same time, right before everything kind of went crazy, I had decluttered a bunch of clothes. I like went through and got rid of a bunch of stuff. I'm continuing to check more and more things up on my stuff out list. On top of which, I'm really enjoying this project of putting most of my makeup away in a box and just using the things that I think that I would buy with my own money if I started over from scratch. I don't know where it's going. I don't know if I'm going to end up decluttering stuff at the end, but I do really feel like I'm in the middle of a real year of less stuff inspired project, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving using my edited collection of makeup. I would actually probably say I have been enjoying putting my makeup on more since there's less of it at my disposal. I think that that's actually true. Just in terms of the fluidity of the experience, the sense of calm and peace, and the joy that I take in the individual items themselves. I actually think my joy has been increased over the last week and a half with this little minimal collection. How interesting. So it has been smooth sailing, I think, with the year of less stuff. I mentioned this in another video, I can't remember which one it was, and I don't know how many people will have seen it, but a global pandemic puts so much into perspective. And the year of less stuff, I still believe in it. I'm still really glad that I'm doing it. If anything, kind of not knowing what's going to happen this year, not being totally sure we're going to stay in one place, not knowing like where my rent is going to come from like over the next 6 months, that has made me glad that I have less stuff to account for. I mean, I just feel like on this very basic level, I agree with the year of less stuff in light of the way that things are changing and things might change. But at the same time, it's just like not as fraught as it was before. Because it's like, how can a thing like whether I have 10 lipsticks, 20 lipsticks, or 50 lipsticks, how can that make me feel like as torn apart, as fraught as it did before, in light of the fact that we're worried about this virus? You know what I mean? And it's not to say that I shouldn't continue to, and we shouldn't continue to strive to be our best selves and to learn more about ourselves and know ourselves more, and that it shouldn't matter at all anymore that I enjoy having a smaller collection more than I enjoyed having my big collection, for example. Like, just because other things matter more doesn't mean that everything that matters less than that ceases to matter. Of course, it still matters. It's just the perspective has helped me to be less overwrought about not just the year of less stuff itself and whether I'm sort of like successfully executing the project, and for that matter, the budget. It's helped to take the pressure off of the fact that it's public, and it's just helped me to care less what other people think. It's just like, I've always wanted to be someone who cares less what other people think. I was watching Drag Race, which, oh, thank God for Drag Race right now, because it's my favorite thing ever, and it's so wonderful that there's a new season currently being released and that we have it to look forward to every week. But I was watching the most recent episode, no spoilers here, but there's a very brief moment in the workroom where the queens are putting their makeup on, and Gigi Good, who's one of my top queens this season, I'm Team Gigi, and I'm also Team Crystal. For some reason, I am so compelled by Crystal. If you're watching Drag Race, I love Crystal so much. I don't know if I can even explain why at this moment. She might even be in like my top 2 queens ever on Drag Race in terms of the affinity and love that I feel for her, second only to Sasha Velour. But she's so different from Sasha, which is really interesting. Anyway, I love Gigi as well, and Gigi is putting on her makeup and talking about her gender fluidity, and she said in that interview that she realized at a young age that she doesn't care what other people think. The confidence with which she said that, and the fact that she said that it was something that she realized about herself early, like when she was young, I'm so envious of that. I wish that I could have been someone early on who didn't care what people think, because I feel like caring about what other people think, worrying about what other people think has held me back in so many ways. The reason I'm telling this story is that I was trying to say before that one of the kind of beautiful things about the shock of what's going on right now, just in like my little life over here, is that I find that I've been released from like a huge part of the burden that I have usually carried in my life of what other people think. I just letting it go. And so it's like what other people think about my year of less stuff, what other people think about the way that I'm executing my projects here on YouTube. It's just not plaguing me like it was even a month ago, and that has been a blessing. So that was pretty much it for the year of less stuff. It's just going great, and I'm not that bothered about it. Like that's kind of the whole picture of the thing. And I guess I'll talk more about that when I talk about the things that I bought with my budget in March, and also when I reckon with the stuff that has accumulated in the purgatory box over the course of March, because when I do that, I'll be talking about like what actually has come into my life and looking at it again compared to what has gone out of my life. But the little list is right here. Basically 3 times the number of things have exited my life since the beginning of the year as have entered them. So I feel like, great, that's great. I'm hedging a bit, getting into number 3, which is just like checking in with you guys about how things are going in general for me in my life, and for me as someone who's hoping to continue to show up and make YouTube videos. So I just want to check in about kind of how my YouTube production like changed dramatically just in the past week or 2, because what happened was when things started getting like very serious in terms of social distancing and having to be really careful, and then that very quickly moved into lockdown in a lot of places. California kind of was one of the first, and then we lost access to our building and all this stuff. As all of that was happening, I was very kind of put together and calm, and I continued to show up and make a video every single day. I like ramped up my production of videos because I wanted to stay very connected to you as things were changing. I am pretty calm in a crisis, and I felt like that was when crisis was like starting. It was when we felt the most sense of chaos because we were having to rapidly adjust to a rapidly changing situation. And in those kinds of situations, I can come through, and that was what I did. And side note, you guys were so amazing during that time. It just meant everything to read your comments and to hear that you were grateful to be able to watch the videos. And still, I mean, it still is like that. I'm not saying that it doesn't mean everything to me now that I get to see your comments and to know that you're grateful for watching the videos, but there was just something about the pressure cooker of those first couple of weeks wherein I really, really wanted to like show up consistently and like a lot, like long videos and really a lot. And then I just craved like hearing from you and being connected to you. And and you were there for me too, so thank you. But basically, I feel like what happened was for those kind of roughly 2 weeks when a lot of people, like a lot of my friends on YouTube, were really having a hard time. Many people who I'm not personal friends with, but who I watch, were like freaking out, not able to film. But during that time, I kept calm, I carried on, I stayed very focused, I continued pumping out the videos, and I was generally very emotionally stable and clear-headed. Then about 10 days into our total quarantine, so Joe's and mine, so like on our timeline when we had really like literally not left our studio apartment for 10 days, about that time, everybody else was like starting to get used to the idea of what was going on, and more YouTubers that I watched were starting to emerge and produce more content. And then I quietly started freaking out. And I have to say here that one of my saving graces during this time has been a podcast that I've been listening to, which I'm not a podcast person. I really never listen to podcasts. Like this is it's like baby's first podcast, you know? But Joe listens to all the podcasts, and he was like, you have got to. He basically bullied me into it. He was like, I don't care what you think about podcasts. You've got to listen to this one. It is a podcast that is only being recorded and broadcast because of and during this pandemic. And it's by Emily V. Gordon and Kumail Nanjiani, who wrote The Big Sick. If you've heard of that movie. And The Big Sick is an autobiographical film. So Emily didn't play herself in the movie, an actress played her, but Kumail played himself. And it's about what happened to them early in their life together when they had first met. I actually still haven't watched The Big Sick. I just know about it, and I can't wait to watch it now because I'm listening to their podcast and I am in love with them, like individually and as a couple. I'm in love. They have been in quarantine for a lot longer than most people, even most people in LA, because Emily's immunocompromised because of her illness. And so when this started to happen, they took it very, very seriously very early on. And they basically went into like super intense and super early lockdown, because if she were to get the virus, or if he were to get it and pass it to her, it would have much more dire consequences than maybe it does for the majority of people. So they were basically like a couple of weeks ahead of everyone else in terms of having to process and think about like the import of this situation. And also they were ahead of everyone in terms of being forced to develop strategies for getting through it, both as individuals and as a couple that's like trapped together in their living space. So that would just be wonderful in any case, but it's made doubly, triply, quadruply wonderful by the fact that they are wonderful. They're both very in touch with their feelings, and they are very honest about their challenges. And they also have really great senses of humor about themselves and about each other. And they have been really good at reminding me that nothing right now is normal, and that a huge portion of everyone's energy is going towards trying to process the import of what is going on a global scale. You wouldn't think that that would be easy to forget, but I think that it's easy to forget because humans are so adaptable and we are so good at sweeping things under the rug. And in trying to retain a sense of normalcy and in trying to like comfort ourselves, I think that we have a tendency to just minimize it, to be like business as usual, keep calm and carry on. Let's like have a good steak dinner tonight and like watch our show and like live our best, you know? That's great. I mean, we've been doing that too. We've been trying to live our best under the circumstances, but it's really been important for me to have Emily and Kumail's voices in my head reminding me that while you might be doing that, it's okay to not be okay underneath that, because nobody would expect you to be okay right now. And I think that I'm the worst at expecting me to be okay right now. And so I act okay. We are using our coping strategies as best we can. But I think it's really, really important to remember and to know intellectually that we're not okay. Like, this is bananas. And so I was saying that I've been quietly freaking out for the past several days, and I just have Emily and Kumail to thank for the fact that I'm not freaking out about the fact that I've been freaking out. And then I'm able to sit here on camera and calmly tell you that that is what has been going on. I think that what set me off was that we got sick. We don't think that we got the virus, but we had a cold. Joe and I both had a cold that we were kind of sharing, but it hit him worse than it hit me. And he has not great lungs. He has a history of some asthma, and it got really, really bad. He had really, really bad lung stuff going on for a little while, and there was a day where we thought we were gonna have to go to the hospital, and it was awful. We spent some horrible long hours deciding if we should or shouldn't go, kind of like weighing the risks, talking to some nurses on the phone, calling friends who we know or work in the medical profession, me kind of like checking in on Joe constantly, making sure that he was okay, that his breathing was okay. It was just a very, very, very bad day. This was like a week ago. We have since determined that it was probably a combination of whatever cold we were both fending off and some seasonal allergies that we had kind of forgotten come around for Joe at this time of year. This would only be the second year in this environment, and so it kind of took us by surprise. And I think in the chaos and paranoia of everything that's going on, we like didn't put the pieces together. But we've since determined that that's probably what it was, and he's totally fine now, and I'm totally fine now. But it just undid me. It like it unlatched the lid that I had been like keeping on all of my worry and fear, and I lost the stability, the inner stability that I need in order to sit down in front of a camera and film YouTube videos. So I suddenly wasn't able to. And during that time, I did manage to film the overhead shot video with swatching my eyeshadow palettes, and the overhead shot video about the things that I have been using, the makeup that I've been using, and the makeup that I had under my desk and all of that. So I was able to do that. That was it. And that was hard. It was just like, it was hard to show up for kind of for anything, but I feel like especially this kind of output. Over the past week and a half, I've done things like, first I watched all 3 of the Despicable Me movies and cried uncontrollably at the end of each one. And then I proceeded to watch all 4 of the Toy Story movies and cry uncontrollably at the end of each one. I got like irrationally mad at Joe one evening because I was cooking and he came over and turned on the vent fan over the oven because the cooking that I was doing was generating some smoke. And I was just like, I hate having the fan on. Like, I can't stand having the fan on, which is like, why? Like, what is that? Like, I had my noise canceling headphones on, and I was still like enraged at him for turning on the fan, and I got like actively mad at him. A couple of days ago, I was really upset about probably nothing, went into our bathroom in the middle of the day. Our bathroom is the only room in our apartment that has a door that you can close. So I went in, closed the door, laid down on the bath mat, and just like sobbed into a towel for half an hour. I wish that I could tell you that things like this have not been happening to me. And, you know, I could just like not say them here on camera. I mean, I'm choosing what I say. Or I guess I could go back and like edit them out if I decide that it's too embarrassing. But I probably won't edit them out because I'm remembering how much it has strengthened me to have Emily's and Kumail's voices in my ear, telling me, confessing to me through their podcast, confessing to the world all of the absurd ways in which they have been falling apart. Because I admire them so much. They're smart and professionally successful and emotionally intelligent and evolved. They have a great relationship. They're funny. And still, they are losing it in one way or another most days. Having their voices and their honesty in my life right now has helped to remind me that because of the scale of what's going on Earth right now, nothing, no amount of intelligence or success or functionality or emotional awareness or humility, none of those things can protect us from feeling it on a deep level and being undone by it to some degree. Having those things, having those good qualities that they both have certainly helps. And having like a partner that you love and a place to sleep and food to eat, all of that in a situation like this very much helps. But no matter who you are and no matter how strong of a person you are, you can't expect your strength to keep you from being messed up over this. The world has changed probably irreversibly, like permanently. I'm not saying it's going to be like this permanently, but the world has changed in a way that's probably permanent. And it's happened so fast, and it's happened more radically. Like, the change is more radical than almost anyone who's currently alive has ever experienced. It's like a world war. No matter how high functioning you are, there are bound to be cracks in the foundation of your ability to handle it. And if by telling you about my cracks and the way that they are showing, I can help you feel better about yours and help you be more patient about the cracks in the foundations of the people that you are like living with or working with, if I can help you feel better about it, then it's worth it to have to admit that I watched all the Toy Stories in the bath crying, or that I yelled at Joe for no reason, or that I haven't been able to film. All things considered, I think I'm handling it pretty well. It's just that because of what it is, this is what handling it pretty well looks like. It just looks like way worse than me handling anything else in my life ever pretty well, because this is so much harder than those other things. And the scale of it is so much larger. It's like we don't have practice with, it's not like that, it's true. We don't have practice with dealing with things on this scale. I'm feeling better now. We are doing better. I am doing better. In terms of health, we are way better. And I obviously am, here filming now. So obviously I've entered a phase, like I've finished watching all the Toy Story movies and I've moved on to the next phase. And it's a phase during which I have rallied and am able to film. But I'm aware that this might keep happening as the months go on. We don't know how long this is going to last. And I don't know how much of the time that we're in quarantine I'm going to be like medium functioning, how much of the time I'm going to be high functioning, and how much of the time I'm going to be like low functioning. I just don't know how handling it well is going to look for me. And so I want to enter a phase of my life on YouTube during which I don't promise anything. So I've historically promised a video every Wednesday and every Sunday at the very least. And I've usually had at least one more video in the week. It's been like an average of 3 videos, going up sometimes to 5 and sometimes to 7 a week. And I don't expect that like weeks will go by where I don't post. I personally really don't want that to happen. But I would like to, for the first time ever, let myself off the hook for my locked down posting days. So I'm going to try to continue to post, but it might not be like always Wednesday and always Sunday. There might be weeks where I do manage to get 2 or 3 or even 4 videos out, but they don't necessarily fall on Wednesday and or Sunday. I just feel like I need, because of these extraordinary circumstances, more flexibility. From now on, I'm officially just doing what I can. I'm going with the Lauren May Beauty model of being consistent, putting out a lot of videos, but just kind of like marching by the beat of my own drummer in terms of like when they show up on my channel and what they are and what the posting schedule ever ends up being. I know you guys understand, and I hope I haven't like over-explained this, but I just, for my own sake, I like to be really, really clear about what I've promised, because as someone who works for herself and is like a self-starter and self-motivator, I have to train myself to follow through when I say I'm going to do a thing, which I almost always do. There have been times on YouTube when I haven't been able to do that, but I hate it when that happens. And that's how it should be. I have to have like a very strong aversion to not following through with a schedule that I set for myself, even though I was the one who set it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be self-employed. So it's for myself that I need to announce that things are shifting from like a promised core schedule to just me doing my best and having the schedule be more fluid. In terms of short-term expectations, I actually do feel like it's worth telling you that a huge project has come up that is really important to my aspirations as a writer, and it has a looming deadline. It's like a ton of work that I have to do in a short amount of time, and that's happening right now. So that's why this video is like being filmed and posted on Sunday, and I'm just having to like squeeze it into a short amount of time, because suddenly in the midst of everything, I have this giant task that I need to do. So for the short term, actually the videos might drop off a bit because I genuinely need to prioritize that other task. And I'm going to, again, do my best to keep filming, but don't worry if it's like you don't hear very much from me for the next week or so. It's just because that is going on, and then we'll kind of like assess the landscape after that going forward. Even over the past week, even as I've been like freaking out and crying on the bathroom floor, I've missed you guys. I feel like consistent posting and consistent just like connection it's become part of what keeps my life balanced. And even though I sometimes need to take a break for my mental health, over time I start to feel like something's missing. So I am going to try really hard for my own sake and for you guys to get back to posting as high a volume of videos as possible as soon as I can. I'm just going to do it under conditions of not a lot of pressure. And that is it. And Sadie and Joe are starting to make a ruckus. Sadie, come here. She's coming right over like a little dog. That is it. The next video will be the one about how I spent my budget. I'm actually looking forward to filming it. And I'm not sure when I'm going to have the time, but as soon as I do have the time, I will do it. And it'll be up, pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that. The other thing I wanted to say is that if you guys have identified with, maybe this is like a weird kind of ask for the comment section, but if you identified with what I was saying about like there being cracks in the foundation, if you found yourself falling apart in a way that you usually consider to be like not okay for you, and you've realized either before watching this video or while watching this video that it is okay that you fell apart in that way, or that you indulged in XYZ, or that the equivalent of my like snapping at my partner or crying in the bathtub, like those kinds of things. If you think it would be cathartic to share it, then share it in the comments. I would love to know. If you're at the point where you can kind of laugh at yourself about it and recognize that it is just, of course, a natural part of trying to process the unprocessable, which is what's going on globally. If you can't, don't. Like if you're not ready, then please don't feel pressured. But if you are, I would love to hear from those of you who can talk about that right now. And I'm sure you would love to hear from each other. And I think it could be like a good way of supporting each other, way of just like getting some even more perspective about just like the way that the human brain manages to, I don't know, like account for this chaos. And just to, connect to each other even more and feel less alone. So I am looking forward to hearing from you guys in the comments of this video. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.